Good evening, everybody. How you doing? We got another live audience. I can feel the eyes. They're all over there. We got another. Oh, gotta turn the light on. Now we can do this. So how's everybody? We're on a Wednesday. I've already got the giggles going. We're on a Wednesday. Boy, was today a very interesting day. The excitement isn't over yet. We're going to be back tomorrow. But boy, this is an interesting day. We get cliffhangers at the end of the day. So good luck sleeping. Good luck. We give that up. We'll sleep on the weekend. But how's everybody doing today? Did you check out my semi-live updates? I didn't have live updates. I had semi-live updates. And let me explain to you why. So when we enter the court today, and as court time's coming closer to 10 o'clock, the accredited media box was empty. Both of them empty. So I approached the court. Well, actually, I didn't approach. They come and tell us, guys, be quiet, do the right thing, turn off your phones. Any questions? Yes. Today I have a question. Oh, what's that? No accredited media. I'm a journalist, and I would like to go ahead and assume the position of the media here today because there's none. At first, she said, no, you have to be accredited, which means government approved. And I have no intention of ever doing that. So that's a stopper. But we did read the laws. So we read the laws of the Alberta courts on reporting and being able to record and accredited media and all that stuff. Just like basically anything else here in Canada, the judge can just decide whatever they want. So that's what it comes down to. So I explained to her that I understand the rules of the court when it comes to media, and the judge has the ultimate decision. And I would like to pass that request on to the judge. And then she did. She did. And came back smiling and said, no, you can't. So I'm like, all right. So I guess the public is not going to get live stream updates on this particular matter right now. So that's why it didn't happen live. Then on the first break, we immediately went straight back to the clerk just to confirm. If I step into the hallway, do I get to enter that magic area where the media can work again? And she said, yep. If you go into the hallway, you can do whatever you want. I'm like, okay, great. So in 15 minutes, I did the full session as fast as I can. There were people coming up to her. I talk. I'm like, got to do media. I'll finish this first, okay? And just in time, I got the last one out, and I was able to go into the court and continue. So just to let you know, there is no accredited media at all there now, none. And but yeah, I'll do my best to continue to get these live tweets out semi-live outside the court and doing it all proper. But that's kind of how we started the day, was whether or not we can be media, and the answer was no. I did talk to the defense later and asked them to maybe bring that issue up again, because the court process is supposed to have media, and in the absence of accredited media, we should be defaulting to the next available person, and I'd do it. I would do it. So that's how we started. Kind of neat, huh? But yeah, if you haven't seen it yet, I'm on Facebook and Twitter with these live updates, and I was trying to do minute by minute, but they came in batches when I was allowed to do them. This is Canada when I'm allowed to be media. It's interesting. But we do have a live studio audience again here today, and we got Granny and we got Danielle here as well. So let me bring them all in here, and there's about 24 people here. Oh, I gotta mute you. There we go. So there's my live studio audience. How about everybody says good? Okay. The applause sign works. It works. I got a complaint, believe it or not. This guy got a complaint, and it wasn't from a media organization this time. It was from the public, and they said, yeah, it's loud. I'm trying to listen to everything you say, but you had your audience clap, and I didn't like that. So, in the spirit, so if people's clapping and laughter and enjoyment is something that is not good for you, there may be other shows for you. But I really hope you stick around and get the information, because that's what we're here for. So good morning, Danielle. Or good morning. Look at me. Good morning. Yeah. There's so many people around me that are lovely. They're trying to make sure I'm eating, make sure I'm resting, and I'm doing neither one of those. So there's probably going to be an entire room trying to force feed me a little bit later. But happy to say I did have half a score bar, so I should be able to make. Okay, I'm back. I'm okay. But yeah, I'll be okay for the show. So Danielle and Grandma, how did you think today?
Well, I'm still confused.
I know, me too, a little bit. Well, there was a lot of case law today that was presented. So both on the defense and the Crown, and from the judge, it was just a lot of case law trying to decide whether this solicitor client is going to be pierced or not, and because it's such a bit of an anomaly, it seems in court law that yeah, they had a lot to cover, right, just to try to kind of pull it all in. So it was a little bit much to take in that way. It was a lot of dry court referencing to other case law, and case law, I guess, being, other court rulings from other judges and how that kind of might relate to this case itself. So, there'd be maybe 5 or 6 different references in one argument, and all the points that go to that. So it was a lot to sit through. It was a little bit mind numbing, I guess you could say.
Well, I was thrilled to walk out into the lobby, and Lloyd looked at me and says, "What just happened?" I thought, thank you, because now I don't feel so lost, because everybody's lost right now.
Yeah.
It's not
Well,
just
and they
me.
argued case law, right? So it wasn't even just arguing the case. It was if the defense presented case law that they thought was relevant, then when the Crown got up, he got to argue that that case isn't relevant because of this and this, or another judge ruled that that was not the case, or, so it was a lot of, I guess, case law sets precedents in the law, I guess, at the end of the day. So it is important that they use it and that they're cognitive of it, because this case as well will go down as case law one day, an important one as well. So
I was happy to hear the Crown didn't have a lot of case law to fall
Yeah.
back on, because if they had a lot of case law to fall back on, that would say a whole lot of corruption is happening with the Crown. So
Yeah.
it was good to hear there wasn't a lot of case law.
Yeah, that's a good point, because that came up a couple of times, right? That came up. Yeah, sorry, you're not live. You're not live. Sorry, no problem. You just watch for the mic thing and I'll let you know. But you're absolutely right there, Granny. Sorry, I need to get some more sugar in me. The Crown had very little case law or no case law, because what they're searching for is whether or not the Crown should have to give this information. Because one of the things the Crown said was they were not supposed to see it. You kind of brought that up like an argument. Like, one of the things was you weren't supposed to see it. Yeah, well, the cat's out of the bag. Now that it's there, we see it. Go ahead, guys.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, it was a little bit more of,
Oh,
I don't know if they were using that as their argument or not today. It was a little bit more, certain things should have been given back. We gave it back redacted. That should have been used. But even the judge pointed out, he's like, no, if it, obviously if there was something that could bear weight on the accused's innocence, then it needs to be put forth, right? So there was a lot of talk about that, the accused and how much weight was on their innocence or their guilt. So I don't know. It got a little bit muffled and all of that. There was a lot of shuffling around today.
even the judge was confused.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And there was some good parts here too. The judge at one point, he actually admitted he didn't have the affidavit. He left it upstairs on his desk, so a clerk had to go run and get it. And then shortly after that, he ended up deciding that it's not admissible. So the reason why it was not admissible was too late, didn't have material information in it really. And then he zoomed in on one part of it where they said it was an advisory opinion instead of a legal opinion. And because of that one word, and I think it was strategically placed in as advisory opinion, because the person who wrote it, if they said it was a legal opinion, then if it's not, well, then they just lied in an affidavit. So they used a word that was broad enough that it could have been anything. And because of that carefulness of the affidavit writer, not wanting to get in trouble for lying, it didn't hold the weight at all that the Crown was trying to represent it had. So it wasn't a legal opinion. It was an advisory opinion. And then the judge did explain that even if it was a legal opinion, it wouldn't carry much weight at all to his decision of what he's going to do with the unsealing of the envelope. So at the end of the day, that was unsuccessful by the Crown, unless the success was to delay, because it did cause an adjournment to happen. We had to come back the next day, and at least 3 hours of court time was tied up into the arguments around this. So if that was the strategy of the Crown, that succeeded, but the affidavit itself was not admissible. Now, when we move on to the next part, which to continue the defense's arguments about the piercing of the client solicitor privilege, there was a really important part here that came up, and it put the hair on the back of my neck up. And this is something I spoke to Chris Lysak about yesterday. So when I was talking to him, he was very excited because he kept talking about how he believes it was a charter violation for his rights, so Section 8 for search and seizure. And I actually said to him at that point, I think it's more than that, because if it's just a charter violation, they would deal with it in a certain way that doesn't include piercing client privilege or client solicitor privilege, and they can actually deal with the violation itself. There's charter violation procedures here in Canada. So I said to him, my suspicion was this is more than a charter violation. There's something closer to criminal, because charter violation isn't a crime in Canada. It's just a misdeed by the government. It's not a crime. But because the law society was involved and there's other things involved, I felt like there might be crime here. And we also had the term crime fraud yesterday. So as I'm explaining to Chris, I'm thinking, dude, I think there's a little bit more than charter here, but we'll have to wait to find out tomorrow. And one of the very first things the defense said when they came up to continue today was, this is not just a charter breach. There's an issue of innocence at stake, which is a legal term, which means basically somebody's trying to put you in jail when you're innocent. Basically like that. It's your innocence is at stake here. That's a higher thing than even your charter. Your innocence is at stake here. So that was brought up. And we also found out that this particular issue affects 8 warrants. 8 warrants. So the first one that we all know about, and then 7 more after that. So there's 8 warrants that could be gone. And if those warrants are gone, anything that came from it, the poisonous tree in here in legal, anything that came from the poisonous tree is just gone. So at this point, if this succeeds, what we do know, just on its surface, is 8 warrants could be tossed and anything that came from those. So that's pretty exciting. And what I understand from the defense as they were arguing, and that's not it. That's just not it. There's potential criminality from the Crown's office as well. This is in addition to this. So Danielle and Granny, when you started hearing things like 8 warrants being affected and innocence at stake, what was going through your mind?
Let them out.
Yeah,
And
for sure.
Yeah, dominoes effect. One goes, they all go.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's kind of how I've pictured it for quite some time now. And even with just the wiretaps or anything, I just felt like there's got to be something that there's just a domino effect after that, because that's kind of how it all kind of escalated anyway. It was just one thing after another. And it just seemed like if they had all of this stuff enough to make those arrests that night, you would have thought it would have all been there. There would have been more content to their story when they made the arrest and not to soon come after, right?
Yeah, I can only imagine what the guys were feeling listening to this. They know they're innocent, and they're sitting there with their 4 stories that have not been heard or shared, and they're listening to all this. I can only imagine what they're feeling. Like, that had to be hard, sitting there and just wanting to scream the truth out, I'm sure.
And there was one point where I think the defense was being accused of cherry picking information, putting it into a submission. And I thought, oh my gosh, like if you were to only see how the disclosure was cherry picked and what's been cherry picked in the media, I'm like, we've been cherry picked to death. And it's, you want to yell, welcome to the club, buddy. Like, you just want to yell it. I can't imagine how they felt.
Yeah, exactly.
When they're complaining about things that have been happening for, well over a year constantly to these guys who are behind bars, it's just hard to hear them complain about being in the same position, having disclosure, having something dumped on them at the last minute, or not enough time, or we're cherry picking. Like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were some interesting comments there, but did you see the Webster Dictionary photographer come in, take a picture for hypocrite as he was giving that testimony? Because they have to update that picture, because he was a hypocrite when he was talking about that. He was saying it's unfair that they're dropping this at the wrong time. In fact, he actually said that they should have had this application at the end of the trial. The Crown was suggesting and implying that the application for this particular item that they're fighting about right now should come at the end of a trial. So in other words, what he said, in 12 to 13 months, let's have this argument again. No, the judge did not agree with that. They're going to continue with the argument because there may not be a reason to continue if this is successful. So no, the Crown had some sort of weird idea or hope that maybe we can push this down the road for a little bit. Some really interesting stuff came out of the defense as well, because the criminality, if you don't know this, you need to have two parts to it: actus reus and mens rea. So the actus reus means you did something, and mens rea is, you know, it's criminal. It's your mind. Your mind knows that you're doing something wrong. So the defense was talking about how she believes there's mens rea here. So that implies that it is criminal, 100% criminal, not just a mistake. They know it's wrong. So that came out. Then again, they kept repeating the terms crime, fraud, innocence at stake, and abuse of process. So these were terms that the defense was using as she was describing and making her arguments. And then it came out, then there's almost a hush in the crowd when this happened. Mr. Johnson is a conspirator, she said. So she outlined that there's a conspiracy going on, which means there's at least two people now. So no, one is a criminal, two, there's a conspiracy. Well, we're here with conspiracy for murder, so we all know what that word means. But now it's being used against Stephen Johnson himself. And then the defense went into explaining some of the case law about piercing the veil. And one of the ways to pierce the veil is if your client dupes you. So your client dupes the lawyer. That's one way to pierce the veil. So if a client is lying and not assisting and they're duping, and this is a term that's used in the legalities of this, it could also pierce it. Now, she then explained how in this situation, the lawyer in this is the Crown. So the Crown is the lawyer, and Mr. Johnson is the client who duped them. So they were using that terminology in order to pierce the veil. Because if he's lying and duping his client, the Crown's office, that is another way to pierce that veil. So that argument was put on there. And by the way, this defense has done an excellent job. Like, I am sitting there and I'm having, I'm in legal love with her right now, the way she's doing this, because on a legal standpoint, I am impressed with her arguments, how she articulates them, and she doesn't get distracted or anything like that. She's very good with keeping the judge engaged and continue the conversation. We also found out that if during the commission of a crime, privilege is destroyed. So this is yet another argument that she brought up. So not just duped, but if there's a crime in the commission of a crime, there is no privilege as well. And then the last part that I have here is ask the courts to look at the information. So this was kind of neat. So the defense was saying at some point, you're gonna have to see the envelope. And then we'll see later that the Crown also ended up saying that too. That basically, in order to understand what's going on here, you're gonna have to see the envelope. So Danielle, at this point, we were adjourned. So then I ran out into the hallway and took a bunch of tweets and did a bunch of tweeting. What was the mood like in the hallway at this point with the people where you're out there chatting?
I don't know. I kind of probably was outside, but I think everybody's just getting a little frustrated. You can kind of sense that there's just like a frustration with the slowest molasses process and the constant adjournments to check this and check that, and that all arises from people not being prepared for court, I guess. It's just, yeah, and it's a painful experience. Like, I mean, we've got this imminent, we only have 4 days total, so now we've got 2 days left, and we thought we were hoping to be a little bit farther along than this, and there's witnesses lined up and we've got 2 days left, and if things keep popping up at the wrong time, like, what does this mean for time? There isn't anything else on the books until November, so it just gets, yeah, you just hope it doesn't, keep hoping, right? You just keep hoping that tomorrow you don't show up and something pops up and they have to adjourn because there's another issue popped up at the end of the day pertaining to some client solicitor privilege. That was a separate issue altogether that they're all going over tonight and having to redact some information from some documents. And hopefully that's all finished tomorrow, because if it isn't, everything changes tomorrow. So it's a little bit overwhelming. It's kind of exhausting. That part's exhausting, just the not knowing, and knowing that tomorrow morning we could be in and out in half an hour and back tomorrow because we got to solve this before we could do that, and back, just the worry. And I mean, we have to deal with them, especially Granny, about their mental health while they're going through this, and the mums and the dads and all the
Yeah.
family. Like there's a different, it's not just this for us. Like there's a different
No.
layer of heartache and drama and support that needs to go along with things, you know, when it goes this way. So, and the dragging out there can be we try to support the men and keep them strong, but it's sometimes it's hard when we're exhausted and we're confused and we're frustrated too. And this is the hard part, right? And then
Yeah. We still have to worry about fundraising. We
you know,
still have to
a
worry
lot
about
of money. I mean,
about
we worry
probiotics.
about if
Yeah.
this veil isn't pierced and everything just is stunted where it is with this application. A lot of money has been paid
Well-
already for this application.
Well, this week
So
would have cost like $75,000.
I
We were
know.
figuring it
Yeah,
out. It's like,
$75,000.
yeah, for 1
You
week.
got to think between them. Like it's
Yeah.
like the amount of money that's going into it is alone. So when you watch these days just like trickle away and get pissed away, like you got to think somebody's paying for this. It's not free.
Exactly.
And you're paying for the Crown prosecutors involved and all of that stuff, right? Like, and that's a problem. Like, you got to think, like, there, even those 3 head Crown prosecutors, and now this 4th one, like, everybody's getting paid. There's legal aid lawyers involved, judges involved, clerks involved, sheriffs involved. I don't even want to start doing the math. Extra staff involved at the doors to monitor the extra crowd. This time it was nice. We had no like police presence outside. Usually with supports, you know, court things that we do quite have a police presence outside. It was nice this time. There hasn't been any. They kind of seen how everything went last time, and we're in Lethbridge. We got better things to do in Lethbridge. So, and it was nice to see the Lethbridge City Police kind of respect us enough to know to go and use their resources elsewhere. And they're great to communicate with. We've had good communication with them. But as far as everything else, like it's a lot of money, a lot of dollars going into it. I'd hate to sit down and do the math. I almost don't want to know as to how much this is costing, not only the defense, you know, and the accused, but, you know, taxpayers in general with everything. Yeah.
I want to do a couple things here. First, Jacqueline's in our chat. So chat lady, go ahead and put Jacqueline's last message up. And let's get that there. Chat lady. There we go. Everybody say hi to Jacqueline. She was on this morning. Look at that, Jacqueline. You got a bunch of love. If you haven't seen the video yet, it was almost 3.5 hours. There was no way I was stopping that one. I quite literally had the car waiting outside like an IKEA ad. Start the car, start the car. That's kind of like what we had this morning because we had no time left and we jumped in there. Now, Granny, I got to go to you, and you're not going to like this. I got to the courthouse, you know, kind of excited. We're getting in there. I got through security, pop up the stairs. There you are. And you didn't have a smile on your face. There was something bothering you because something happened this morning is probably still ongoing. Why don't you go ahead and let everybody know what you had to deal with?
Okay, well, this morning at 8:30, I took some shirts over to the remand for Jerry. And at the same time, while I'm there, I asked the lady, because Tony told me, the nurse told him that we could drop off probiotics for him. Tony's been struggling with health issues that stem from back in 2015, 2016, and now they're coming back. It's called SIBO. And he needs probiotics. He's been on probiotics throughout, and it's been a struggle for him to get them. Finally, a doctor in Medicine Hat wrote him a prescription, but the prescription is not good here in Lethbridge. He needs to have a doctor. He needs to have, it's like the dog chasing its tail. The remand says it needs to be a doctor. The doctor is saying it needs to go through the remand.
And it's AHS.
And it's Alberta Health
AHS,
Services.
so it's no different in there. It's worse.
So I said to her, we need to do something. So she did actually phone, and she said it has to be Tony's, I guess, liaison to Alberta Health Services. So I got Tessie, Tony's mom, to make a call, and we stood there with Tessie, Nikki, myself, and Tessie, and we made the call. They would not even admit Tony was in there. They said, we cannot tell you if he's here or he's not here. I said, okay. Hypothetically, let's say there's somebody in the remand that needs probiotics. What is the protocol? What do we do? Well, you have to have a doctor. I said, what if, hypothetically, there's a prescription that's still good till August? Nope, can't do. So I said, well, what if there's a diabetic? Does their medicine follow them? Does their prescription? And right away she says, nope. And I'm thinking, a diabetic, come on, seriously? So anyhow, Tony's good friend, Nikki, is on it. She's got a file number. Tony has to do something. Nikki's in here, isn't she? Yeah. Yeah. Come up here.
We're gonna get her on
Come
Friday.
on. Come here. Let's get Nick. There we go. Slide on over.
Oh, here, give me mine. I can.
Okay, so Nikki can update us on what she did today, because there's a file number and everything involved.
So I phoned the ombudsman, and they said at this point they could not help Tony because it needed to go through AHS. So I made a call to AHS and through their complaint line and told them Tony's situation. And they asked if Tony could call, and I said, well, it's pretty hard to call when he's in court from 8 to 4, and they're closed after 4. So I requested a file number. So I do have a file number, and I will get a phone call back in 1 to 3 business days was the earliest they could help me. And so they give me where Tony can apply for a file at the remand center, and we can push it forward hopefully quickly through that way.
Okay, I feel, because Tony is suffering in real time. He has been sick for months and it just keeps getting worse. This does not get better without help, and they just want to use pharmaceuticals. Pharmaceuticals will not help this. He needs what he used at the naturopath. And there's a protocol, but they won't allow it. And the longer this goes, the sicker he gets, and the harder it will be to get him healthy. So I don't know if we need to contact the health minister of Alberta. Maybe we need to send some emails and some letters and some phone calls, because we need to get attention. Because every minute that Tony goes forward, he's not feeling well. He feels sick all the time. He's in pain. He's in discomfort. We, as the people, need to be his voice. He doesn't have a voice right now. We're it. And to be honest, if this doesn't get fixed within the next 24 hours, I feel we as the people need to be Tony's voice, and we need to start a lawsuit against maybe Alberta Health Services. I don't know, maybe the remand center, maybe the doctor at the remand center. I don't know who that is, but if anybody's got suggestions on what we should do, please come forward and help us and help Tony. So, and I know Tony's got a lot of love across this country. That man has wrote how many letters? I can only imagine how many phone calls he's placed. So if you've got suggestions, please come forward and help us help Tony. And stay tuned. I'm going to make a call to action within 24 hours. And then everybody that's watching this program, let's make some phone calls and some emails. We will get attention. We can make that needle move, and we can get Tony the help he deserves. And those probiotics should be in the vehicle as he moves, because you know everybody else's medication would follow. So, oh, did you guys talk to the head of the remand? He is very...
Talked about that earlier today.
Yeah. Well, and the
They
sad
have helped us.
Yeah, they have helped us before, but for some reason, they're not helping us now. I don't know why, because they have. He's been on probiotics before, even in Lethbridge.
and he did ask for
Yeah.
some Clydal
Yeah.
silver, and because it's not prescription, they won't offer it to
Yeah.
him.
And this is in Lethbridge. He has had probiotics, and they will not give it to him now. So what kind of game are they playing? With somebody's health?
You can tell when he's not well. He
Oh.
sits there hunched over. He's
Yeah.
gaunt. He's yellow.
Mm-hmm. No, it's
Or he's lost so much weight. It's already just
Yeah.
hard to watch him like that.
exactly.
What kind of toothpaste does he use? Tell them about that. Darkness.
Feel like he's wasting away.
Yeah, he's wasting away.
Staying in
Oh, but
the
he
States.
did make a deal with the guard to, there's people in the unit that he's on. It's kind of more of a bit of a drunk cell, or, you know, like when they go to sober people up, they're only there for a day or two. And he says most of them don't eat anything because they're kind of just not well. So he made a deal with the guard to go and clean up the trays if it was okay that he could do whatever he wanted with food. And the guard's like, oh yeah, it's me from doing it.
Yeah.
So Tony said all the untouched plates, he's been eating all the vegetables and all the good stuff off. And he's like, and so he's got a job, so he's got
Yeah.
out an extra hour.
Yeah.
He's got like extra food, so he
Yeah.
negotiated
Yeah.
with like the guard to work and eat. So
Yeah.
it was kind of, I was like,
But-
that a boy.
When I was there this morning, there were some ladies out cleaning the front entrance of the remand, and I knew they were inmates because they had orange or yellow Crocs on, and they all wear those, right? So I'm thinking, oh, these are the ladies that are inside, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is what Tony's doing now. He's running around and he gets out and gets to do something, and he loves to work, so he would be enjoying doing something. So.
Yeah.
But he has to feel better to even enjoy doing that. So, Tony, we will get you help. Charlie's Angels, like
Tony's Angels.
Tony's Angels, Tony's Angels. What do we do? Like the God? Oh.
And all I can offer for you right now is my notepad, pen, and my attitude. So if tomorrow morning this still hasn't happened, I'll go over there and start asking for names, writing them down, and let them know there'll be a story coming immediately around this. Sometimes people change their mind when the press shows up. I can offer you that. And if that doesn't work, then we'll continue with all other plans. But yeah, I'll go start taking names. And maybe get it out there by noon. Maybe they'll move faster. But we can offer you that. So sorry that is happening. And there was one more comment there, Granny. You did leave it out. I don't know if you want to put it in there about what Tony's attitude about it was.
Tony is always in a good mood and always happy, and always puts a good face on it. They all do. I think we need to remember 29 days. What are we on? Lost track.
Too many.
They do put good faces on, and they do sound well, but we need to be realistic. That's a long time in jail, and they're just faking it until they make it. Oh, there's Mike. Hi, Mike.
Just so everybody knows, that's Mike Lysak, Chris's father. So Chris's father just came in. So thank you very much for being here, Mike. Appreciate that. Thank you. So yeah, sorry, Mike came in. Did we get to the part where Tony gave you that one comment that we didn't
We
like?
want to talk about certain things.
Yeah, love you, Grandma. Yeah, love you, Grandma. So moving on now. So this was now the first intermission. I went outside, did a bunch of things, and then we came back in at 12. So just before lunch, the Crown started their arguments. So the defense finished their arguments about the piercing of the veil, and she did a great job. She brought up a lot of different ways to pierce the veil, including civil and criminal, and there's a big range between. The Crown, on the other side, had some different arguments. So at 12 o'clock, he started with innocence at stake. So that was the first category he decided to start with. And for some reason, he decided to make non-legal arguments first. He was calling the language being used by the defense inflammatory language. So he didn't like the type of words being used, like crime fraud. Yeah, it's inflammatory, especially when the actions were there too. But yeah, he was for some reason making the argument that inflammatory language was a problem for him. He also talked about the Law Society, which is odd because the Law Society is governing the actions of the defense at this point. But he said that the bar expects respect for all lawyers. So he's trying to identify that these lawyers are being vicious towards the Crown. No, I don't think so. I also want to explain to you this Law Society process, why they're involved. Because when allegations are being made between lawyers, it gets sticky, it gets difficult. And if there was not a process that you had to go through, lawyers can just be pointing the fingers at each other all the time for breaking the rules and stuff like that. So that when there's the allegation of solicitor client privilege that needs to be pierced because something bad happened, the Law Society steps in and there's a process. This includes putting the information or the evidence into an envelope, sealing it. You have to give a copy to the Crown. You have to give a copy to the judge. Again, they're sealed. The Crown gets to open it because they're the ones, in this case, the defendant, because you're making the allegation from the defense to them. And yeah, for some reason, he decided to say that the bar expects lawyers to treat each other nicely. I think that was a moot point because they are using the Law Society to make sure everything's done properly. And the defense basically has their license on the line when they start this process, because one of the things they have to do is swear to it. So the consequences to them for starting this process and it isn't valid is their license could be suspended or revoked. So a lawyer has to sit down and think really, really, really hard if they strongly believe it's worth putting their career on the line in order to bring this forward. And this was something that Chris Lysak was talking about last night, how proud he was of the defense team to go ahead and step up that way, because he understood how serious it was for them if they were wrong. So this is basically an indicator to us laymen's. They don't think they're wrong. They do not think they're wrong. They do think that they're doing the right thing here. So when the Crown is complaining about things like that, you didn't have to see it, but the judge is rolling his eyes. And then the judge cut in and he says, "It's my turn. Please speak up." Because for some reason, this particular Crown started to get softer and softer. And then you couldn't hear anything. You just couldn't hear anything. And through my body language work, that is an indicator of someone who's very uncomfortable and not confident in what they're doing, because they actually are shielding themselves behind lower and lower voice. So he did speak up a bit. And then he made this comment, like, "I'm not going to get into a battle of words," because for some reason he didn't like the words, but then he brought him up and then says, "I'm not going to battle this." Like, you didn't even have to bring it up then if that was your intent. I think what he was doing, because we do this, is we start arguments and then we keep an eye on the judge to see the reaction. Is he buying it? Is he liking it? Or is he displeased with it? And I think he was getting the impression that he's not happy with any of these arguments so far. And then he brought out what I think is the biggest joke of the day. He brought out the argument that they ought not to have seen it. Really? So just because they saw it and you're sure they ought not to have been arrested. That's an excellent point. Yep. Yeah, 100%. Like when they're making these arguments, that's why I call him a hypocrite, because basically a lot of his arguments should be copied and pasted over to the defense and then used for the situation the Crown created. But yeah, we heard those kind of arguments. And they actually said that he believes that they cannot use it as evidence, so they shouldn't be talking about it like it is going to be evidence. Again, I don't think the judge was happy with any of these arguments at all. But then he continued, the issue of timing is an issue. Should be decided at the end. I almost lost myself on that one, because how can you, of all people who just did an affidavit last minute earlier in the week, all of a sudden start talking about time is of the essence and we should be doing this in a timely manner? That was an impressive argument to make, and it did not fly, because what he's trying to say here is, let's talk about this after we've wasted more of their time and kept them in jail for another year. And then let's see then if the evidence, all the other evidence stands up. And he makes a comment later that the judge corrects him on about which evidence is important in this case. But at this point, somebody in the galley reminded this gentleman that we can't hear him anymore. So the galley spoke up. We can't hear him. Now, I got to tell you, there was some caution in the crowd. You could feel that. They're like, uh-oh. Are we in trouble now? Because we know that we should, no, not this time. I think the judge absolutely agreed. He paused and then he said, "Please speak up." So he didn't give the galley any trouble. He just paused. We all felt that uncomfortable moment. And then he said, "Please speak up." And then we moved on. What was that?
I did.
You didn't feel like
No.
Well, I'm glad we were. Yeah. And then we continued. Notes are taken. This was an interesting comment from the Crown. Remember this one, folks. Make a poster or a t-shirt out of this one. Notes are taken not for the accuracy of them. Danielle, what about that?
You hear me?
Yeah.
Can you hear
We
me?
can hear you.
Okay, we
No.
can. Yeah, that one choked me up, because I mean, we also sat through, talk about scribe notes and what scribe notes meant and the importance of accurate note taking for court procedures. We've heard these words thrown around so many times, and like why somebody would hire a scribe or so, and then all of a sudden, oh, that's just for like remembrance stuff, doesn't really matter. Not, oh yeah, now it doesn't matter when your ass is on the line, but you know, now like suddenly it doesn't matter, but it definitely does now. So I can't even imagine. I think I think that was a desperate move. And I think, you know, at some point it is frustrating to watch, you know, them saying stupid stuff, but then it kind of also indicates how desperate they are. I mean, if they had something smart to say, I guess you'd assume it would have come out, but when it's just desperate grabbing at straws, then I feel like that's a better indicator that we're doing better than we think, even though we're tired and confused. The more desperate moves, you know, shoddy affidavits, non-posted publication bans, stuff's missing over here. Oh, what did you say, Judge? I can't remember why I'm coming back to that case law. That happened today. I mean, it was just, and poor guy, like, I mean, granted, he only had this dumped on him, like I say, weeks ago. So he's probably extremely overwhelmed and trying to keep his job right now. And it's one of him. And then there's this gigantic defense team beside him, surrounding him.
You gotta remember, he's
And
cleaning up somebody
he's
else's
cleaning up
mess.
somebody else's mess.
So
he
that's
just is
tough.
trying to even learn
Yeah.
what even happened in Coutts. Like, he probably has no clue. So, I mean, I at this point, when I speak of the Crown, I guess in this case, I don't really see him as being like, I think he's just scrounging for his life, and he's been thrown under the bus by the people that actually are the ones on the accountability list. But
Jason could probably tell us about when they brought up, because he brought up that publication ban again. What did that mean? I didn't even understand. Like, that's for tomorrow? Like, what does that mean? Do you understand? Or okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I'm paying very close attention to publication ban because I'm the only one that could get in trouble for that. Maybe. I'm not accredited, so I'm not allowed to be an accredited journalist. So I'm not sure how I could be, you know, penalized for being a journalist if they don't accept me as a journalist. But in either case, no, the publication ban that was being argued yesterday was on the information in the sealed envelope when it comes out, if it comes out. They want that under a publication ban. And then the decision that can come from it, if there is a decision, that decision itself, they also want under publication ban. So clearly, they're prepping themselves for the idea that the judge is going to open that envelope. That's why they're asking for the publication ban on the contents of that envelope. And they're also anticipating the decision may not be in their favor, because why would you want to ban the publication of a decision in your favor? So they're anticipating worst case scenarios completely. Worst case scenario, they're going to open the envelope. They don't want the public to see it. And worst case scenario, the decision goes against them and they don't want the public to hear it. Now, what's in place at the end of the day, so we can just get that out of the way, is there's a temporary publication ban in place now on those two items. Now, it's temporary because it's not fully enact yet, because that'll be on Tuesday or Thursday, because it needs to be posted for 2 full days or 48 hours before it's in effect. But the judge basically just said, okay, we're going to start early, and then we can continue arguments Thursday if the defense or people like this guy oppose it. I have approached the defense and I said, as a journalist, citizen journalist, podcaster, I do oppose any bans on publication of anything. I did speak to the defense about that. They did tell me that if needed, we will ask you to go ahead and speak on that, because they can only represent their clients, of course, but they can also introduce me to the court and I can make an argument for journalists, citizen journalists, whether or not the publication ban should stay in place. We did find out when he first introduced a publication ban that a representative for the media, the same person that represented the media before on the other publication ban, has already consented to the publication ban, which is incredibly surprising because that's the media. Why would they not even argue against it? So they already consented to the publication ban. I found that to be odd. But that's also when the prosecutor mentioned YouTubers, you know, podcasters, citizen journalists. He didn't speak to them. And that's why when he mentioned that stuff, that's why I spoke to the defense and said, I can represent that group of people and I'm going to oppose it because there's no way we should be banning any of the publications. Now, to be also very crystal clear here, folks, we don't have the contents of that and there is no decision. So we are way far away from any banned item at this stage. Now, tomorrow, if it comes out, the envelope is, we know all the information now. I can't report that until that publication ban has been removed. Now, of course, I will try and ask the defense to have it removed because we would like to. But if that comes out, I won't be able to report on that. And if there's a decision, I won't be able to report on the decision. However, if we're still in court after the decision, we basically know what the decision was. If we're not in court anymore, it was a good day. Did I clear it up for you guys?
Now they're all like where we are.
Fair enough. So what I'll do is I'll finish up here now. So the last part of the just before lunch was really cool. So the judge made some really good comments, which are indicating to me where his mind's at. As the Crown was arguing this notes taken, it doesn't not for the accuracy of them. What the Crown was trying to do was prep the court to read something really bad, but means something completely different, is exactly what I was trying to say. It could be interpreted in a bunch of different ways. You can maybe say it looks bad, but maybe it's not so bad. He was trying to set the court up to read bad news and take it a lot softer. So the judge did make the comment, the Crown should not stand behind privilege. So he was making a comment that privilege shouldn't be the thing or a mechanism that a Crown uses in order to hide information and stand behind it. So I like that comment out of the judge, because even though he used to be a prosecutor, he still thinks the proper way. Disclosure is important. And yeah, there's a lot of tricks you can do as a lawyer, and privilege is one of the main tricks that a lot of people use. So he did emphasize that the Crown should not stand behind privilege. And then he also made another comment. Either he has a deck or vacation house, but he goes, I feel this is a shuffling of deck chairs. So as the argument's being made, as he explained it, it's like the arguments are being moved around and he's getting confused. And that was true. This entire 30-minute argument by the Crown made no sense. Like I'm not being a jerk when I say it was legal rambling. There wasn't much going on there. And then the judge basically confirmed that at the end by saying, I feel this is a shuffling of deck chairs. That's a good comment for the defense. And then the last comment from the Crown right before we took our lunch, there's not a lot of law on this. That's why he had no case law. There was no case law in his arguments that protected the Crown from this kind of thing. And what he was saying to the court was, there isn't much case law for me to argue here. I feel good about that, because not enough case law means, well, I guess the Crowns are not doing this much. This doesn't happen often. And I looked at the judge and it looked like he might be thinking about precedents. We'll be setting a precedence here. And judges are very careful about that, because that's appeal. Judges, the thing that makes a judge the most insecure is appeal. This is the biggest threat that they use on judges all the time. You'll hear the Crown, you'll hear the defense remind the judge that things can be appealed. That's a threat to the judge, like, hey, if you go this way, that could be appealable. And judges do respond to that, because that is their biggest insecurity. They don't want anything overturned later. They just hate the word appeal. And I guess this is kind of a way of controlling the judge. But yeah, I saw some of that, and the Crown was saying there is no case law here around this. Now we know why. Now, thankfully, there isn't case law. Now, we broke for lunch at this point. Danielle, do you want to add anything from the morning that I may not have covered?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head. No.
Okay.
No.
Well, that lets me move on. We're doing great. We got about 10 minutes left, and I'm getting on to the last little bit. I did run into Tony Rolston in the hallway. I did wait for her because I wanted to speak to her about how things are going. I basically just wanted to get a comment out of her to let me know where her mind's at on this. The official comment I got from her is, in the fairness of justice, no comment. Because quite frankly, she doesn't want to give anybody a reason to attack their publication ban or get in the way of any other publication bans they might need by speaking out herself. So we will be speaking to her after things are done. And thank you very much for your time there, Tony. But that's all we got. In the fairness of justice, no comment. I respect that. Then we go back in. We got back there promptly at 2:00. Something was weird, though. Nobody was there. Well, actually, no, that's not true. So at 2:00, we're in the courtroom, and then suddenly Crown, defense leave, and they go down the hall, and they're marching. It's like something's up. These guys are on a mission to get somewhere. They go into a room, and they start chattering. They came out, they came back into the courtroom, there's some more chattering, then they went back, and then their assistants went back as well. And then at 2:22, so 22 minutes late, they come back in and we get back to business. Now, in my experience, when the Crown and the defense take off and leave to a room, somebody's not happy with the way things are going and they're trying to figure things out or maybe settling this. In civil matters, you're talking about money and stuff like that. But in criminal, you're talking about freedom. So I have no idea. I never asked and it was never told to me. But I suspect that the Crown offered a deal and it got denied. It got rejected. Don't know anything more because when we came back to the court, we just continued as if nothing really happened. But we find out later that something might have happened during that meeting. So at 2:22, the judge is already telling the Crown to speak up because just before everybody came in, we had an audience member. And look, it's tough to sometimes hear complaints coming from the galley because you get worried that, you know, that might affect the case and stuff like that. But this particular complaint was valid. And it was so valid that the clerk did bring it to the judge. And the first thing the judge said when he came out was to keep your voice up the best you can to the Crown. And even at one point mentioned, use your diaphragm, you can speak. So we kind of had this very timid Crown because his voice kept dropping so low that you couldn't hear it in the galley at all. And then we got a law lesson from the Crown on client solicitor privilege. We're not in law school. There was no reason for that. Everything he said there was not an argument. He basically was reading and educating the judge on what client solicitor privilege is and why it exists. Talk about high standards, all this kind of stuff. It didn't add any material to the matter. There was nothing there that actually helped the case or hurt the case at all. It was just a law lesson. He also said it has to be an absolute necessity. So in order to pierce the veil, he kept saying, like, you should never do it, you should never do it, never do it, except for the absolute necessity. And he's right. That's not incorrect. But I'm not sure who he was arguing for there, because this is the defense's argument. It is an absolute necessity. They believe it's criminal activity. Like, they absolutely. But this Crown kept making these arguments as if he was trying to tell the judge the barrier is too high, don't bother going there because we're nowhere near there. But the defense had already established that, yeah, it is that high, and it's because it's criminal. So I didn't understand the Crown's arguments at all, and I didn't understand how it was helping them. Very similar to earlier, it was a bunch of legal rambling, because I have very little notes here, because I take notes of things that have substance to it, and there's very little. At 2:29, innocence at stake. So we go back into this again. He makes this quote. I had to add a piece to it. To be an exception, there's a genuine risk of wrongful conviction. So for innocence at stake, this is what we're talking about, as an innocent person in jail. Now, in order to pierce that veil for innocence at stake, which is one of the exceptions to privilege, there has to be a genuine risk of wrongful conviction. God, do I hope so. God, do I hope so, because that's why we're here. That's why we're here, to find out if we're looking at a potential wrongful conviction of an innocent person. Wrongful conviction only means an innocent person. So it was odd, again, to hear the Crown talk about the standard that the defense just spoke about. I don't know if that was his way of agreeing to it or trying to eliminate all the lower standards, because the judge does remind him later, there is far lower standards. There isn't just a high standard that you keep pointing to. And the judge at this point, well, actually, I want to back up a second. The Crown kept telling the judge, I know this will be difficult for you. This will be a difficult decision for the court. This is going to be difficult. The judge then let him know, I'm not fond that you keep saying I am in a difficult situation. So the judge let him know, thanks for being concerned for me, but it's misplaced. I'm okay. Don't worry about me. Kind of implying, worry about your Stephen friend. He might be the one. Yeah, and then this particular Crown, again, he brought up another defense term, abuse of process. So he's saying, like, you can't pierce this unless there's an abuse of process. We agree, Crown, we agree. So we need to open that envelope. The judge then asked, why isn't this being discussed under crime fraud? So even though the Crown was talking about abuse of process and kind of going in those directions, the judge brought her back on the track. He's like, no, listen. They're accusing crime fraud. So why aren't we talking about this under crime fraud? There was no good answer from the the Crown. And in fact, I think this is where the judge said, because of case, and then he named the case, and the Crown said, oh, I will get back to that later. We find out later he didn't. The judge had to try and ask him to do that, and then he didn't. 258, crime fraud exception was the next attack by the Crown. So he was trying to vitiate or void the argument of crime fraud. No notes. They made no good argument whatsoever. And then he did that for almost 40 minutes. 40 minutes. At 3:21, we got a 15-minute adjournment. So there was nothing really there. He just rambled again. And you could see that the judge wasn't impressed with that. And then we had an adjournment, went out in the hallway. So at this point, I'm going to go back to you, Danielle. Have I missed any stuff up to like 3:40? Go ahead.
No, I don't think so. I do remember though, like right before lunch, the Crown had submitted some case law to try to override the case law that the defense had submitted. And the judge actually gave him 3 case laws to go review at lunchtime that basically trumped what he had just done. So that was kind of neat because then it showed that he was on top of them and he's like, yeah, I hear you, but here's 3 up from that. And then when they came back from lunch, he had kind of just gone over that a little bit and kind of, it was tort. What was it? Something in torsion. Yeah. So he, I thought that was good. He kind of did the job of the defense team on his own. That's always handy. But yeah, that's all I can remember from.
Yeah, no problem at all. But there was one more point there, which was the Crown was trying to use case law, and the judge gave him some case law. And the Crown said, I prefer this one. And the judge said, yeah, but this one's from the Appeals Court of Alberta. Like, oh, yeah, I guess so. Because it's a higher court than the one he was using. The way case law works is it goes by the levels. So you got small claims court, you got superior court, you got appeals court, and then the Supreme Court. Those are the levels, and they're always persuasive or binding the higher the level. So the higher the level they go, that's the one you use. So he was using case laws from here, and there's appeals that appealed that case law up here that the judge was aware of. So that's good news there. There's a fly inside my TV screen. Can you put that back up? I want to see what that says. And he's always comes out for your shows. He really likes Granny. So Granny's got a fly friend. That might be CSIS, just so you know. Just so you know, that could be CSIS. And then we came back. So at 3:40, the Crown continued the arguments. And at 3:45, the Crown ends arguments. Again, no notes because there wasn't much to talk about. He just came in, kind of rambled a little bit. And I think this is where we got the appeals stuff from the judge at this point. And then we moved on. Then he also closed his arguments. At 3:45, the defense came back up. And now we start hearing about what happened earlier. So the defense tells us the reason for the delay is going to affect my arguments. So there's an issue there that didn't fully solve. Now we thought, or I thought before, that maybe it was a settlement offer. Turns out it was probably a little bit worse for Steve Johnston than that. Because the judge then, getting some of the information and some of the cryptic conversation from the defense, actually said this line: this should also be a t-shirt. If my eyes are looking big, that's because they are. So the judge was like this on what's coming down, very surprised and shocked on a legal sense, because whatever happened in that room is affecting things dramatically all of a sudden. And the defense says, we are working with the Crown and the DOJ to address this. Now, to those people listening, that's the Department of Justice. The Department of Justice, the people that lay criminal charges, this is the serious deal here. The Department of Justice is now involved with whatever was going on right after lunch. The Crown then says, we need to speak with Mr. Johnston. Okay, that's interesting. Then we start talking about whether or not they're going to adjourn and whether or not they're going to pause and talk to him later and continue things. And the Crown says, we might be able to resolve this in an hour or 2. Now, the judge was looking at the clock. An hour, let's do it. 2, it's a little bit late. So I guess they started to think about the time at that point. And then the defense says, if maybe Mr. Johnston can join now. So they actually brought him in. So he was, actually we adjourned here. So at this point at 3:50, we adjourned for just a few more minutes as they went to go get Mr. Johnston to come on video. At 4:03, we come back in. Something weird happened here, and I don't have all the full details, even though I did ask one of the defense attorneys on the way out, and he couldn't describe and tell me everything because a lot of this is under seal and a lot of this hasn't been decided upon. And some of this might become eventually under publication ban. So he's been very cautious. But there was a discussion about sealing the defense's brief. So inside the defense's brief was privileged information, which is also included in that envelope. And the Crown was concerned that the brief itself would be public. We could see it. I haven't seen it yet, but that was a bit of a concern. So they wanted to seal the defense's brief that contains this information. The judge asked, what about my copies? And the Crown says, I didn't think about that. The judge says temporary seal of the defense brief. So at this point, they decided, because there was consent from the defense, that they didn't mind that it was going to be sealed. Now, here's what I think is going on. There's a piece of information in there that if it does turn out to be privileged, it needs to come out because they can't continue with that brief with it in it. So they might be preparing for that. I'm not sure. I did not get good enough information to know fully what that is. I'm going to do my best to try and get more information about that so I can correct that and update you on that. But the defense just said privilege may already be waived given the situation. So again, the RCMP can waive privilege, and we don't even have to have these arguments. At this stage, the RCMP's counsel said they're not waiving privilege. But at this point, it seems like the information itself may end the case because the judge says, or maybe we will not need to continue. So he was letting everybody know that this information, yeah, it's maybe privileged, may not be privileged. We may have to do all this stuff, or maybe we will not need to continue. And then the defense said, ideally. And then at 4:09, Mr. Johnson joined us via video from his office, looking comfortable and confident, right? No, he didn't look comfortable at all because all of a sudden he's getting a call from his buddy here who's defending him. And hey, dude, you need to get on the phone or you need to get on this call. So he did. The judge then, they were talking about whether or not a witness would be needed. So there was a police officer that Mr. Johnson lined up as a witness. And I guess they were talking to him about that witness and whether or not that witness would be available. He said that the witness is in Lethbridge and is available. And then the judge says whether we will need a witness may yet be determined. And the judge then said, I am being cryptic. And he's saying this to Stephen Johnson. And then his response was, this is a surprise development. So he knows a little bit more than we do, but he called it a surprise development, Stephen Johnson himself. And then he left. That was the end of him. The Crown then asked about the publication ban, brought it back up again. And as we spoke about earlier, the judge did provide a temporary ban. I think at this point, the Crown is expecting the judge to open that envelope and just wanted this in place because if the very next thing that happens tomorrow is we get to see this envelope, that ban is now in place and I can't tell you about it. And then we adjourned for tomorrow, 10 o'clock. And that was the full day. Danielle, I'm going to come back to you again, see if I missed any parts that were important to you.
I think you got everything. It was kind of a hard day to follow because it was a bunch of shuffling chairs and uneventful comments. And so to bring it all in, there just really didn't seem to be a lot other than a bunch of adjournments and shuffling around. It wouldn't say a waste of a day, but almost a waste of a day, especially, it's hard to say. Some things came about, but it took a long time to get there. And some of it, maybe I'm still like, even just the obstruction of, justice and all of those words. Some new terms got brought up today that I need to go and kind of dig around in a bit. But yeah, I just wish there was more to say about today. Other than that.
It was a great break. It was a great break.
The judge also mentioned about keying, right? Yeah.
Morin, you want to come? You just go near. Just go near them and you can talk.
I just wanted to mention how the judge had mentioned that he had invited representation for the RCMP to be there today, and they declined. I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point because they need to, well, I guess they felt like they have to either waive privilege or they're going to be part of this. I'm not sure why or what, but you're right and good point. And yeah, anybody else in the crowd remember some details that I may have missed? You guys feel pretty good about that? All right, that's a great crowd. Okay, so folks, what we're going to do is we'll wrap up because we're just finishing up. So I want to thank. Oh, we do have their hands up. There's a hand up. No, no, no. All right, all right. False alarm, false alarm. It must be the crown back there trying to distract us. I'm not sure. We'll check later. But thank you, Granny. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you. Who was here? Who's the other one? Nikki. Thank you, Nikki and Beth. All right. Your commissions are in the mail. Oh, we want to say something. Here we go.
So as everybody knows, I do the fundraising. I always try to get it out there. Not that I do it by myself because there's many people that help. But we have to remember these men do need money for their legal costs. So Operation Rescue, Ride for Freedom Poker Rally is September 16th. I will start posting posters tonight and you can find it and read about it and see what we're doing. And if we could get 1,000 registrations at $100 each, a lot of money can be raised and we can help these guys. So start looking for this poster and see what we're doing.
A little closer up there.
Okay, yeah, where am I? Just a second there. There it is, Operation Rescue. So, yeah. So I'll start sharing the posters and let's start. We need to focus on this. We've got 6 weeks to do this. And as we all know, the barn fundraiser took a lot of work and a lot of energy. So if you can support us by donating hamburgers, hot dogs, buns, juice, pop, whatever, pigs for a pig roast.
Yeah, if you got horses, you want to come
Ride,
ride
not
it.
eat the horses,
No.
ride the horses, ride the horses.
We're not that redneck. No, musicians.
Yeah,
anything, like if
exactly.
you've got stuff to
Lynn,
stop.
where's Lindsay?
She's over there.
Lindsay? Yeah. You'll come and sing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, woohoo. So let's make this the biggest freedom rally that Alberta's ever seen and come together because we are stronger together. And let's solve a big problem called a legal nightmare for 4 men in a remand jail. So
We don't know the exact cost, but they're probably pushing it up to close to $1 million so far.
Yeah. We said if we go to trial, it's going to be around 2 million. Let's pray they don't go to.
Now we're getting nervous. That's not even a true statement.
I know. It's
So it's a
frightening.
lot.
It's frightening. But let's get through this one day at a time. Let's focus on getting the Operation Rescue Freedom Rally out there. Let's share. When you see this poster, use your finger. Just
Yeah.
get it shared.
Yeah, post it around. And
Yeah.
if somebody approached me yesterday about, I kind of want to do something in this town. Who do we contact from you guys?
Yeah.
And I says, how about you just do it? You organize it. It's your baby.
Yeah.
And then you send Granny the money. So,
And then I give the
we
money
love
to the
the
guys.
idea, but if you guys
Yeah.
come up with some ideas, and if you guys want to host your own,
Yeah.
make that your
Yeah.
thing, and we'll help you promote it and all
Yeah,
of that stuff.
exactly.
Absolutely, use your
Yeah.
imaginations.
Yeah. One other thing I would like to bring up, our friend, I got to point that way, James in the far corner there. Yeah. So that man has got some talent. He's got a business, and I'm going to start promoting that one also. Christmas is coming, and every grandparent out there, pay attention. I am going to start promoting, that way, Jason, James, I'm going to start promoting what he does because he needs a business. He needs to be able to work from his home. He's going to have to leave and leave his family behind for a little bit to go make some money. He needs help, and we want to help him.
And hopefully he gets a wrongful conviction
Yes,
thing coming up
yes.
here too. So.
But we still have to help him. What's that? Did someone get an answer from this morning's episode? Can any one of us go to the Calgary Reminder and put money on Jim? Yes, you can. No, you can. There's a machine there. You can do it at any.
It's a kiosk.
It's
like
a
little,
kiosk. Yeah.
thing we
It's
just
like a
walk
bank
in
machine. It's like a bank machine.
But the thing is to remember, if this money going directly to him, you're gonna lose a percentage of that money if you deposit it in the jail.
You have
It
to,
is
though. You
what-
don't have a
it-
choice.
it is
He's
what
not
it is.
spending it if it's using it, if
Oh,
he's
he'll
using
use it.
in the jail.
He'll use
Well,
it.
then, yes, put it there.
Yeah.
But if this is gonna be money that's not gonna be used in the jail, because there's a company down in the United States takes a percentage
Yeah.
of any money
That's
that.
different.
But the thing is, if you put it on his canteen, like if you put it into his, he can disperse it to the phone, he can disperse it to the
Yeah.
iPad, he can put it in his
Yeah,
canteen.
it's
Yeah,
discretion.
and if they get released, they get to take it out. But if you put it on the phone package, it stays in the phone package.
Mhm.
So try and put it where he can use it and where
And
he
then
can,
they
yeah,
dispense
then they
it,
put it
yeah.
where they want.
They can get canteen, they
And-
can get,
And again, it doesn't have to be at the Calgary remand kiosk. It could be at the Fort Saskatchewan one. It could be
As long as you got
wherever
his
there's a
number,
kiosk,
their
as long as you've
numbers.
got their inmate number. Oh, I hate that number. But just because it says inmate,
anywhere in Alberta.
innocent until proven guilty number. Right? So just, you can put money on all 4 of their accounts. Because there's 4. What'd she say?
Jacqueline just said what you said.
Oh,
Yeah, Jacqueline just responded the exact same thing you said there, right there. There you go. Not for Jerry. Jerry has to be cash. Yeah, Jerry has to be cash. The other 3 you can. I ran into that myself. I put it on them, and the Jerry has to be in cash. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap up. So thank you all very much. That was awesome. Let's add that chat to there. There you go. I want everybody to participate this one. Let's say their names. Tony. Okay. Absolutely. Thank you all very much. Thank you all. Well, folks, that's the end of day 3. Well, 2.5. We had a half day on Monday, then we had 2 full days. We got 2 more days to go. And I'm really, really hoping that tomorrow, the worst case scenario is that the judge does adjourn again because he's opened the envelope and he's going to make a decision. So hopefully tomorrow we get the answer on whether or not that envelope is going to be opened. Oh my gosh, this is like Christmas. Just waiting for it to come to see what's in there. All the stuff that they're talking about, all cryptically and stuff like that. Yeah. I want to know what they're actually talking about. I want to see what's in there. I have some ideas, but I won't speculate on that one. But we're all going to be there at 10 o'clock. And if you can be there, please come. We had a pretty full court again. It wasn't packed. It wasn't completely full, but it was darn near completely full. So thank you all very much for your support of these 4 men. And make sure that if you want to send the money, you can send it online, except for Jerry. He has to be in cash on one of those kiosks. And make sure that you look up that biker. What was it called again, Granny? Operation Rescue Rally, Poker Rally. Yeah, so keep an eye out for that. It'll be on Alberta Political Prisoners. I'll tweet it when I have it, all that kind of stuff, so you can check that out. Well, everybody, it's been a long day. Oh, I got a couple more things. We were on Viva Fry again, so go ahead and check out his video. You'll see that I did an update from the front of the courthouse, and I got a response from James O'Keefe, Project Veritas, the guy he also to do that. He is now O'Keefe Media. So he's still doing that. I reached out to him this morning. I was quite surprised. I got a response. Called him on my way back to the hotel. So James O'Keefe is interested in what's going on here. He is definitely a corruptions investigator. You know what he does. He gets behind the scenes and he really likes to do accountability. And our entire system may need some accountability in this one. So thank you very much, James, for reaching back, having your people reach back, and I appreciate that. And we'll take a look at how we can work together on that one. So on that one, everybody, thank you all very much. It was a good day. There was some sad moments, and there was some exciting moments, and some very confusing moments. It's definitely one of those days. But yeah, we're going to go and get ready for tomorrow. So thank you all very much. It was great, and love you, and God bless.